Let's talk about trust today, genuine trust. Because building genuine trust in your pay equity analysis and developing a thorough understanding of your risk exposure will become increasingly important when you defend your company's interests. This video will help you refine your thinking and approach to pay equity in light of three major shifts. The first is the recent US federal government's policy changes. The second is continuing shifts in the labor markets. And the third is the further transformative potential of the emerging technologies. As you already know, OCCP has resigned its long-standing order requiring federal contractors to conduct annual pay equity audits. On top of that, the federal government has taken action against what it called overzealous DEI efforts in both the private and public sectors, potentially affecting all proactive pay and career equity assessments. In addition, it signaled that it plans to challenge companies and their legal counsel who use junk science to support such efforts. All of this is happening on the backdrop where technology and social media has eroded the social and personal bonds that once fostered trust among people, including in the workplace. The relationships between employers, employees, executives, managers have all increasingly become transactional, indirect, and focused on the short term. On the other hand, many employees disengaged or even became hostile to the very companies that sustain their welfare. A logical consequence of this increase in polarization and the federal government's retreat from its role of a mediating and preventive force will be an increase in the number of and the intensity of conflicts played out in courtrooms and public arenas as spaces of last resort. This comes on the top of already rising trends in labor and employment lawsuits, settlements, and damages awarded over the past 2 decades. So, what can you do to protect your company, and why is it the time to act now? 6 points to that effect. First, it's highly likely that stopping your annual review will make you worse off. Despite OFCCP's recent retreat, without an annual review, your risk is likely to increase. More importantly, without an annual review, you will not have a measure of those risks, nor the chance to get ahead of a developing issue. Second, you should critically reassess your current process to determine whether it can be genuinely trusted by the authorities, by employees, by legal institutions, and by others. This is especially true for those of you who conduct the analysis in-house using prepackaged software solutions. Later in this video, I will show you how an analysis can be undermined by simply following the instructions given by some of these software providers. Third, simply having empirical results is not enough. A collection of calculated, unexplained pay gaps means little without context. Context on how they were calculated, why they were calculated, and most importantly, how they relate to business realities. How do they relate to the employees' experiences on the ground? In disputes, context can make all the difference. Ensuring that context is understood and documented is crucial. Resist the temptation to see everything in black and white or insist on simplistic analysis. Risk can be, and often is, complex, manifesting itself in many shades of gray, which cannot be reduced to simple binaries. Fourth, the entire process, from data tabulation through modeling and remediation, should be managed independently by an expert. Relying on a black box approach for most of the way, then having someone without the critical knowledge and experience to interpret the results doesn't qualify as an independent process. Fifth, and related to the previous point, a critical, expert-driven approach is far more likely to result in an accurate, reliable, and high-quality analysis that instills trust compared to a prepackaged solution, because it is tailored to your specific circumstances. While everyone uses software, data tools, coding, the difference is in the level of expertise and understanding of these tools' advantages and limitations. True understanding comes from the application of the right tool to answer the properly asked question. Sixth, and possibly most important thing you can do, leverage an expert as an extension of your team. Treat the analysis as a journey to understand how your pay decisions are aligned with the data and how that data reflects your day-to-day operations. You may get valuable feedback and ideas for your future strategic decisions. This approach will also increase your ability to understand the underlying dynamics and anticipate risk. Risk manifests itself in many different forms and comes from many different sources. Those nuances cannot be grasped through a simple dashboard or Excel table. Those nuances instead are grasped through an interactive process of discovery. the returns to that process are often substantial. Now, as promised, let's deconstruct the process of running a pay equity analysis to help us highlight the common misjudgments made when using an out-of-the-box tool without applying critical expert thinking throughout the entire process. And specifically, the following are the 10 steps in running a predictive pay equity analysis using regression methodology. 1. Define the pay outcomes, like base pay or total compensation. This includes decisions on the timing of outcomes, which should be included or excluded, and the specific functional form used in the modeling phase. 2. Choose the data technique. Select the specific algorithms and their sequence for running the predictive models. 3. Segment the workforce. Group the workforce into segments where models will be run separately. 4. Build the prediction models. Define the controls, how each control is calculated, the functional form each control should take, and determine which models should include or exclude specific controls. 5. Stress test the prediction models. Run what-if scenarios such as using different segmentation approaches or alternative specifications. 6. Interpret the modeling results. Analyze what drives pay, to what magnitudes, model's robustness, prediction accuracy, etc. 7. Calculate risk. Drill down strategically to identify pockets of risk and assess the likely sources of such risk. 8. Calculate mitigation scenarios. Stress test mitigation options against cost, impact, complexity of the approach, and other strategic considerations. 9. Develop a practical implementation system, that is, identify employees whose pay should be addressed, along with guidance for managers. And 10. Determine a communication strategy. Develop an effective communication plan for conveying the results and decisions to different shareholders. With a do-it-yourself software prepackaged solution, many of these steps are not immediately apparent because those decisions have been already made on your behalf without your input. Thus, the prepackaged nature of a software product. To see how the trust in your analysis can be undermined, let's consider 2 examples. The first example pertains to workforce segmentation. Specifically, a large pay equity software provider advises its users to use the current job architecture, whether it's flawed or it's outdated, to group employees by job level and job function for initial analysis. And only after that analysis is run, questions like, is this employee slotted in the right job, or is this job properly leveled, should be asked. While this analysis may seem faster, it may not be reliable for you to take any decisions based on it, and you may spend more time circling back, rerunning the analysis without a clear direction as to where the analysis is leading you. This would happen because the approach suggested by the software provider skips over an important but basic question, which is, why do we segment the workforce to begin with? We segment the workforce based on common compensation dynamics that apply to certain groups of employees within the company. For example, in certain parts of the company, institutional knowledge may be important. Thus, tenure will have a different effect for those employees than employees in other groups. Alternatively, in other parts of the organization, the rapid change in skills may be important. Thus, the dynamic between new hires and the incumbents should determine what the proper workforce segmentation is. Automatically running an analysis by job level and job function shortchanges your ability to strategically group employees to get your analysis as accurate as possible and close to the reality. Another example, this time from a different software provider, relating to the development of an implementation system. The technology automation product that they market would send managers notifications when a comp ratio for certain employees drops under a certain threshold. Without a strategy, this approach can do more harm than good. Why should one expect of a manager to take a consistent, unbiased pay decision on the spot when receiving such a notification, or even use this information at all? While it's tempting to reach out for technology solutions that promise an easy fix, be skeptical of the tools that market themselves as fast and simple. Pay equity is complex, and pay decisions affect real employees' compensation. These employees live and work in real life. They must trust the decisions you make that affect them. This is why the employers have the responsibility to really try and understand the nuances of the process and be in the driver's seat when taking the strategic decisions. The good news is that you don't have to do it alone. You can partner with an expert who can help you understand the complexities, choose the right tools, and ultimately gain trust in your process. In conclusion, continue running your pay equity analysis at consistent intervals to keep a proactive pulse on your risk exposure. Assess your current process if it can be genuinely trusted and is not based on an opaque, black box, or prepackaged set of rules that ignores your business realities. Resist the temptation to view everything as black and white or insist that the analysis be simplistic. Risk can be, and most often is, complex, assuming many shades of gray that can be reduced to simple binaries. Assess your current process to determine if it's truly independent and has the seal of approval by a third party's expert's critical review. Understand that the real insights come through the application of the right tool to the properly asked question. And leverage an expert as an extension of your team as your thought partner. To find out more about these and other pay equity topics and how to effectively protect your organization, please reach us at ceteris.co.